Hello, ladies and gentlemen. You're joining me once more on another virtual rambling. Now, today we are playing something a little bit different. I know I say that all the time. You've really got to stop believing me. This is The Invisible Hours, and it makes me chuckle when a developer says right at the beginning of their game that their game is not a game. Now, if I consider a walking simulator a game, then I probably consider this a game too. Ooh, I can pause time, can I? How do I do that? Press. Now, you'll have to excuse me with my relative, what's the word? With my relative inexperience with this game. I've never played this one before. I may be unfamiliar with the movement controls, it may be true. Oh dear mate, you just lost your umbrella. I do wish I could get rid of this silly wording here as well. I'm pushing the left trigger, but it's not doing anything. What an excellent start. Now I'm wondering if I'm just kind of privy to the happenings in this game. This is the first VR game that I've played in this series so far, and I have to admit I'm not very happy that in a series called Virtual Rambling I'm essentially teleporting around like some glorified Nightcrawler from the X-Men. It's not ideal at all, and I really much prefer natural movement systems to this kind of movement. So part of me would part of me is just wondering whether to just play this in a normal fashion, and I think I might do. While this game may be very fun to experience in VR, I would rather have a walk on my hands rather than teleporting around. So I'm going to stop here and restart. One moment, please. We are back, ladies and gentlemen, and here we are with The Invisible Hours once more. I have switched to my trusty Xbox pad. I have undonned my headset. That's funny. It's picked up right where I left off. Now, where was I before all that shenanigans with my trustworthy VR headset started? Ah yes, this, ladies and gentlemen, is Tequila Works' The Invisible Hours. I think it's published by Game Trust. I have no idea who Game Trust are, but props to them for publishing this rather unusual game. Now, hello. I imagine, I think the player in all of this is a non-party to the events that unfold. So what you are essentially seeing here is, well, essentially a walking simulator, but with a drama unfolding as you are playing. None of the characters really recognise that you are there, although you can mess around with their belongings, it seems. She doesn't care. Leave her alone. So, clearly, the story revolves around Nikola Tesla. I don't really know much about him, apart from the fact he was an inventor. Probably a bit like Einstein in that he tried to create all sorts of weird and wonderful things, but as far as I know, his knowledge was chiefly around inventions that were using electricity. I know, I'm a terribly uncultured human being. I don't really know what Tesla did. But he seems to be one of those people in computer games. Well, one of those people that computer games have a fascination with. I remember in my youth, I played a rather wonderful game called Red Alert, and it had an expansion pack. I think it was called The Aftermath or something like that. Red Alert was a real-time strategy game set in an alternate history universe where Hitler didn't exist and Stalin was essentially trying to take over the world instead. You're a very kind man, Mr. Gustav. And yes, Nikola Tesla was... now, whose side was he on? He might have been on Stalin's side, and you had these wonderful things called Tesla tanks, which essentially shocked troops that from afar. And the base game also had Tesla coils, which again were rather large electronical pylons that would shock anything that came near. It's quite funny, really, from a morbid sense. Am I missing something? Now, I'm not going to follow these characters too closely. There's been a murder! Someone call Poirot! He's dead. Go on, say it. Oh. Now, this is an incredibly interesting concept.
What's going on here?
To experience a game like this where a storyline unfolds without the agency of the player is actually quite refreshing, because how many games have you played where the storyline more or less happens without you? I cannot think of many, apart from apart from, say, games which include some sort of time loop, such as Majora's Mask, where events happen over and over again, with or without the player's interruption. Granted, those events are always the same, and, you know, other games that include time loops, such as the Sexy Brutale, upcoming games such as 12 Minutes, although that looks like it has quite a high player agency. But yes, and it's funny that I bring up the whole time loop thing, because this game essentially has a time manipulation mechanic. Look, I'm pausing time. Why on earth do they have a teleporting mechanic when you've got an Xbox gamepad? That's very curious, isn't it? So yes, this is the rewind mechanic in progress. Or is that the fast forward? Yes, that was the fast forward. This is the rewind. So, again, a game with a what's the word? A unfolding narrative without the agency of the player. Again, involves time manipulation mechanics. It's very interesting, isn't it? What an interesting design decision. It's very curious. But as I say, the only thing in this game that the player has real agency over is time itself. You can make it wind forward or backward, and that is about it. The rest of the game is essentially the player gaining knowledge. How could I forget the Outer Wilds as well? An excellent game that only recently just came out, again with an excellent time loop mechanic. And again, that game had a lot of player agency though. You were essentially discovering why your planetary system is going supernova, and maybe trying to undo it, maybe trying to stop it, maybe there is no stopping it. You know, you are there to find out what you can do, if anything. But in this game, the way you engage with it is to explore, to watch the drama unfold, and as you can see here, objects are highlighting as I am going through.
Where is Tesla? Once a flamboyant man about town.
And you engage with the objects within. And that is it. And that's probably why the developers say this is not a game, because perhaps they are concerned about the toxicity that sometimes surrounds games such as this. Gone Home and maybe to a smaller extent What Remains of Edith Finch had those people who are interested in games but not so much interested in games that were chiefly about exploration, with with drawn back player agency, where the player is essentially uncovering some sort of truth or some sort of narrative behind the game's world. So I'm not surprised the developer has done that. Part of me feels like it's a bit untrue, because this is a computer game. It's an explorable, interactive environment with a purpose, with a goal. And to me, that is the essence of a game. Exploration in of itself, as you might have heard me said in previous videos, is a goal into itself. So walking simulators are games because you set your own goals and you either fulfill or don't fulfill them. But perhaps we should experience a little bit more of the story. Oh, looks like something is unfolding here.
Stop. Is the swan of the dining room? Get busy. And we have another
Oh, he's got a gun.
I wonder if Tesla has a set of gallows around here somewhere.
Nobody's leaving this house.
I wonder what you can do. Oops. when you examine objects like that. I also wonder just how much effort has been put into, you know, the facial animation of these characters.
Must confess this man, I'm quite a fan of yours. Does that surprise you?
The voice acting is interesting, isn't it? It's not flawless, but it certainly seems serviceable. Pardon?
You are far too easy. Dangerous man.
Oh, I like this. It's kind of funny. Yeah, it's an interesting game, this one. I don't think I've ever played anything quite like it. You know, oh dear. It's died. What is going on? So I seem to have found my biggest bugbear with this game, and that's that it seems to be wholly reliant on VR if you have a VR setup. It almost seems a little bit beholden to the fact that I have a VR headset and wants to run the game in VR, bar none. I feel like I'm struggling a little bit against this one. There aren't many games that I've had this many technical problems with while trying to do this series. Unfortunately, this is possibly the worst so far. But it looks great. It looks really fun. I'm just going to run through here. And it is such a shame when a game that looks this interesting is marred by a few technical hitches here and there, isn't it? You know, you don't want to have this kind of trouble when you're trying to enjoy something. Oh dear. Oh, we are back at chapter 1, ladies and gentlemen. It's kind of beautiful though, the way you can pause the game in terms of time and it becomes this monochromatic place. Even the rain is frozen. There's something quite beautiful about that. NT. Nikola Tesla. It's like, just in case you're not certain who I am, I will put my initials outside of my house. So I guess the vast majority of this game is just seeing what unfolds in the house. I literally do not know how long this game actually is. I believe it's relatively short because obviously drama is unfolding in real time. I think it might be, say, an hour or two long, because there is the whole, you can rewind time, you can see what happens at certain points, and before the game's even started, Tesla is already dead. I thought I could be a little bit sneaky and see a potential clue as to the assailant if I just paused time and went straight to the scene of the crime. But maybe not. Maybe that was a little bit too cheeky, maybe a little bit too supposedly clever. Tequila works, you smart cookies. I bet every player who has played this has thought of that very thing, haven't they? That very tact. Anyway, I'll start the game again, because as beautiful as this place is in monochrome, I quite like it in motion. Wow. This place sure is wet. I was all up for trying this in VR because, as of late, the weather in England has been far, 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 far too hot to even consider donning a VR headset. And today was the first day that I thought, you know what, I will record a VR game today because, well, part of my concept for this channel was to immerse myself in the games that I am within and explore them from a perspective that, is as close to, allows me to immerse myself in the game as much as I can do within my limited means. Don't expect me to don a haptic suit for my VR anytime soon. I imagine they're a wee bit too expensive. Or have one of those crazy treadmill setups. No, my walker will have to do for now. So yeah, I was very much looking forward to trying out VR. And again, yeah, another little bugbear I had with this game is the movement system. Now, Skyrim VR allows you to change to a natural movement system for those who have what they call good VR legs, and that is the ability to not get motion sickness via smooth movement through an environment. VR games build in a lot of what they call comfort features. So snap turns are considered more comfortable because if you do a smooth turn around on the spot like this, because VR is essentially in your eyes, your brain is like, oh my god, I'm spinning around on the spot, but I'm stationary, why is this feeling so strange? Stop, stop, stop. and it makes you feel quite sick, or it makes anyone with not good VR legs feel sick. And natural movement like this, again, moving forward like this instead of snap like this, makes feel, again, motion sick, or can do. Now, one of the ideas behind my stepper and walking through computer games in the way that I'm doing was that this was an excellent way to tackle motion sickness in VR games. And lo and behold, it kind of works. There isn't much I can do about motion sickness in turning. I am just going to have to get used to that. And that's fine. I will. Like anything, the more you do it, the more you'll get used to it. But yeah, the natural motion analog that I have by using a stepper and VR is an excellent system to deal with motion sickness that might otherwise bother me. Now, before I even had my stepper, I just jogged up and down on the spot while playing a game with natural movement like this. That kind of works too, but it's not ideal, because when you jog up and down on the spot, you are not cognizant, because you're wearing a VR headset, how much you are moving around your environment. If I was trying to do this while walking up and down on the spot, I would be bumping into my microphone. I would probably be bumping my head onto the nearby walls as well, or into the door. So it's not ideal. Steppers, perfect solution, because it keeps me stationary but mimics the forward motion, as it were. So that was a little tangent into my genius ideas on tackling motion sickness in VR. I hope you enjoyed that. Now, I don't know about you, ladies and gentlemen, but I don't feel that, you know, as great an environment this is, it's clearly designed to be a very period house with period characters and period details. The environment itself in this game, you know, while perfectly interesting and serviceable for the means of the game and the narrative that unfolds within, I'm sure, doesn't really lend itself to an extended walk. I think it is quite a limited environment, isn't it? There are only so many times I can wander around the same rooms. And around the grounds outside. No, darling, he's not all right. He had a rather nasty accident with a jar of jam. Sorry, that was rather rude of me. Sorry, Nikola Tesla. So I think I might make this a brief one. This has been a walk that has been subject to... I like the look of that robot thing there. I bet that has quite a story to tell. It was you! I bet it wasn't him. That is totally a red herring. Come on, have you never watched an episode of Poirot? Ah, that told you. Where was I? Yeah, so this is a perfectly interesting environment, but like I said, it's limited in scope. There is only this one island, and I'm sure the unfolding narrative is absolutely fantastic. But I think a bit like Off Peak, which I did a few episodes ago, there is only so much I can explore here. This isn't some massive sprawling Connor Sherlock walking simulator. This is not Skyrim or Fallout 4 with their rather large swaths of interesting handmade landscape. No, this is a very small and interesting space, and one that cocoons within it a murder mystery narrative. And I'm very interested to see how it all plays out. But that is not the scope of this show. I am not here to give you a walkthrough. We are here to appreciate the game environment. Just something that pops to mind is the house design. It's clearly wooden, isn't it? And it looks very kind of old style American to me. I don't know where Nikola Tesla lived. I'm assuming this is an island off the coast of America then, because of the design of this house, or maybe it's not. Ooh, look up there. There's an interesting, like, Tesla coil on top of the building there. That's interesting. Maybe we should have a little look upstairs. The funny thing is that apart from ew, yuck. Where was I? Yeah, the closest analogue to this house I have come across. Oh, you can warp through doors. That's interesting. Outside of San Francisco, in the kind of posh parts of the city there, was funnily enough in Kobe in Japan. They had these wonderful European houses in the upper parts of the city, which amazingly withstood the 95 earthquake. That's 1995, which I remember occurring in my childhood and absolutely devastating the city. But yet, these strange houses that look completely out of place in a Japanese city, you know, a large, sprawling Japanese city, a really interesting one as well. They're just so curious, just standing on a hill overlooking the place. And this house kind of reminds me of that one, because it was very, very, very European. In terms of decor and build. I believe it was called Midori House, which basically just means green house. And yeah, it's a very curious place. As I remember, it had like a really kind of creepy looking ancient doll collection as well. If you want to creep someone out in a house, put a load of dolls in there. And I think I'm going to call it there, ladies and gentlemen. The game has just crashed once more. And I am enjoying my time with it. I do believe that if you don't have a VR headset set up, that you probably won't encounter these issues. I believe there is just a little bit of infighting going on between the Windows Mixed Reality Portal and Steam VR or something like that. They don't always seem to get along, and I think that is causing issues. So I'm going to call it here. I really hope you've had a wonderful time exploring the Invisible Hours with me. My video is not the best representation of the game. Do not take this video as indicative of how the game effectively runs, because I'm sure there are problems that are as much with my setup as they are with the programming of the game. So by all means, check out this rather interesting indie adventure and murder mystery. This has been Virtual Rambling. I look forward to seeing you again, my fellow travellers.